Welcome back to Still Horse History Adventures. I really hope you guys are liking the content so far. Make sure you're hitting the like and the subscribe button for me as well. That way you'll get updates whenever I upload new videos. I do want to apologize first off. It has taken me 2 weeks to upload this video. The weather didn't really cooperate with us, and I've been pretty swamped at work. But what we did today is I went out to Fort Moultrie on Sullivan's Island. I filmed the entire ride there. I'm going to speed that up for you and slow down some of the parts that I think are really pretty. So that way you don't have to sit here for 30 minutes just watching the ride portion. But I really hope you guys are going to enjoy this. So without any further ado, let's get to the video. So back here behind me is Fort Moultrie on Sullivan's Island. If you take Middle Street, so once you get onto the island all the way down to the southern end of it, it'll bring you directly to the fort in case you guys are wanting to come and visit it yourself. Now, Fort Moultrie, originally referred to as Fort Sullivan, would have been made of palmetto logs. The man in charge at the time, in 1776 during its construction, is at that time Colonel William Moultrie. Moultrie would choose the palmetto log due to the spongy nature of the log. The palmetto tree readily available in this local area. Palmetto tree, by the way, for those of you who are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, is the style of tree that you're going to see all throughout this video here. It is a native tree, and of course we'll get into why it's the state tree of South Carolina. But he'll choose it due to that spongy nature. It's going to soak up the impact of cannonballs, or it's going to cause them to fall right back off, or maybe even sink into the wood of the fort. Overall, pretty solid choice if you're going to have to build a fort in a hurry. So in 1776, while they're in the process of building this fort out of those palmetto logs that we discussed, they're going to end up in an attack on June 28th, 1776. The fort's not even entirely finished yet at that point. They've got the cannons inside. They're able to hold off this battle for a total of 9 hours. Now, who they're fighting is Sir Peter Parker of the British Navy. He's going to bring a small fleet here with him, attempting to actually take Charleston's harbor. Colonel William Moultrie and his men, though, are going to be able to hold off this attack, like I said, for 9 hours. What the British are going to find is as they fire their cannonballs at the fort, ultimately those cannonballs are just going to stick into that fibrous wood of the palmetto log. They're either going to be reinforcing the sides of the fort, or they're going to be hitting, soaking up all the energy, and then just falling down off of the fort walls. Now, of course, we've all heard legends about them picking the balls back up and firing them back at the British. It's actually highly unlikely. You didn't just throw a cannonball straight down the barrel of a cannon, light a little fuse and everything fire off. Typically, there was a lot of wadding and stuff involved. Some of it very specific to the style of cannonball and very specific to the style of cannon being used. So very highly unlikely that that local legend would even remotely be true. But either way, they do end up fortifying the walls by shooting these cannonballs into them. The rest of the cannonballs fall down off of it, and they're not really doing a lot of damage. So after that 9-hour battle, Sir Peter Parker reluctantly makes the decision to go ahead and retreat. This will become the very first decisive victory of the American Revolutionary War. It will also be the very first time the American forces have ever defeated the British Navy. So all in all, it's a very important battle for us to win. Had we not won that, it's very likely that the American Revolutionary War would have tipped in the British favor right there, right then. That early in the war could have ultimately been disastrous and could have caused us to win or lose the war almost immediately. So luckily for us, they do end up winning that battle. We'll find that after the American Revolutionary War, the fort will be renamed in honor of Colonel William Moultrie, who by that point is General William Moultrie, partly due to this victory that he's had here on June 28th. We also find that the Carolinians start celebrating that day as the day that the Carolinians saved the Revolutionary War. Today around Charleston, you will find June 28th celebrated as Carolina Day. A couple important things come out of Carolina Day. One of those things is going to be our state flag. The state flag, as we'll post right here. Sorry, I'm carrying all of my equipment with me as well. But the state flag itself is going to have a palmetto tree with a crescent up in the corner. Now, that crescent is a little bit of cause for debate. Some people say that it's the crescent moon. Other people claim that it's a gorget. Well, it is likely both. It's actually likely the gorget style emblem that is displayed on the Moultrie's flag, which I'll put right here. It's likely meant to represent that. Of course, the word liberty taken out of it this time. But it is said that those gorgets were worn on the men's uniform out here at Fort Moultrie with the word liberty inscribed in it, talking about their ultimate goal, what they wanted from England, liberty from England. We also get the palmetto tree as the state tree of South Carolina. despite the fact that some scientists argue that it's not a tree at all, and instead actually a grass. So make us one of the only states with our state tree actually a grass. But let's be honest, every couple of years they also debate whether or not Pluto's a planet or a microplanet or any other kind of planet, or just a big large rock floating out in space. So we'll keep making our mind up whether or not it's a tree, whether or not it's not a tree. Either way, it's still the state tree of South Carolina. But like I said, after the war, the fort itself will be mostly neglected. We're going to find that in around 1793 or so, England and France start seeing some aggressions with each other again. And the American coast, due to this, is going to start refortifying itself. 20 fortifications along the coast, Fort Moultrie included, will be refortified. They'll start making the plans to make it stronger than that palmetto log version that we had here previously. So by 1809, we have the brick structure that we see here today. From 1809 until 1860, Fort Moultrie largely remained unchanged. Just prior to the American Civil War, Major Robert Anderson was stationed here with his men. They would have likely done a little bit of refortifications of it, just in preparation for an inevitable battle. Now, it is very well known at this point that the South is looking to secede with the election of Abraham Lincoln. They've already threatened to do so on December 20th of 1860. South Carolina does exactly that. Major Robert Anderson makes the decision to move his men from Fort Moultrie, susceptible to a land attack, out to Fort Sumter, which is not. He ends up having a 34-hour-long battle on April 12th, 1861. Beauregard will begin firing shots at about 4:30 in the morning from Fort Johnson. After this 34-hour battle, though, Major Robert Anderson has to surrender. He'll end up returning to the North, and the American Civil War has begun. Now, after the American Civil War, clearly due to the defeat of the Confederacy, these are going to remain Union-controlled forts or United States-controlled forts. In 1947, the need for a stationary coastal defense system is really highly unnecessary due to the style of warfare that we are now going to fight. Warfare from the American Civil War all the way up through World War II has changed so vastly that these once very important coastal forts now do very little to defend us. So when they shut down, they would largely be used as parks, and municipalities would take them over, use them sometimes as museums, or sometimes even leave them neglected. In 1948, we find that Fort Sumter starts being handed over to the national government, and mainly to the National Park Services it's still under control of today. Fort Moultrie, however, will remain under state control and local control all the way up until the 1960s. But in the 1960s, they handed it to the National Park Service, who controls it today. And earlier in this video, I had said something a little misleading, and I do apologize. I had said that it's free to go into Fort Moultrie. And what I more accurately should have said is it's free to visit the grounds of Fort Moultrie. But if you actually want to go into the fort itself, you do need to go over to the visitor center and you need to pay the little bit of a fee that it costs to get inside. But children 15 and under are free to go. One of my favorite bits of just extra history of this area is from 1827 to 1829. A famous author was stationed here, going under an assumed name of Edgar A. Perry, I believe is what he was calling himself. But we all know him today as Edgar Allan Poe, and arguably becomes one of the greatest American authors of all time. Some of his greatest works, The Raven, Telltale Heart, and Annabel Lee. Annabel Lee, of course, by local legend, is said to have been set right here in Charleston, but hey, I guess really Edgar Allan Poe is the only one that knows for sure. Still, one of the cool things that I think happens in this area is that such a man that we know of today was once stationed here in the U.S. Army. There's even a little tavern down Middle Street that is called Poe's Tavern. And so if you decide to come out here and visit Fort Moultrie during your travel to Charleston, consider going over to Poe's Tavern for a quick bite to eat and a drink. Now, take my recommendation on this. They have their own little custom sauce that you can dip your fries into. Ask them about it, get that stuff and try it. But hey, thank you guys for joining us for Fort Moultrie today. So, as always, till next time, check twice, save a life. You guys take care of each other. We'll see you next video.